Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week's topic, creating art on a budget, is, I know it's not going to be of interest to everybody, let's be honest, but it is an important topic, and for those of us who are working on a limited budget, I think it's worth sharing some ideas that I have that may or may not be useful. So I should say, first of all, spoiler alert, can you have fun creating art on a limited budget? My answer would be yes, you can. A couple of examples on screen of these little sort of charcoal people sketches that I do. I really enjoy doing these just from imagination, but they're lots of fun to create. And I just use, you can see on screen some materials, a plastic eraser, a kneadable eraser, pencil sharpener, and 2 pencils. One of the pencils, the grey one, is a graphite pencil and the other one's a charcoal pencil. But for those people sketches that I do, I only use a charcoal pencil and paper. That's it. I don't use erasers. I suppose I do use a pencil sharpener. So 3 things, pencil sharpener and paper. In terms of erasers, I say with the people sketches, I don't tend to use an eraser. I take the Bob Ross approach to these things. They're not mistakes, they're happy accidents. So I'm not too fussy about little things going wrong. I just leave it. Some other charcoal sketches, I do use a kneadable eraser, but I use it more as a drawing tool. It's a way of lifting off some of the charcoal and creating interesting textures and things. But the point I'm trying to make is, even with modest materials like a graphite pencil or a charcoal pencil, you can have fun creating things. You can create art, and it doesn't have to break the bank. In terms of this paper that I'm using, it's probably the cheapest paper I've found. It is printer paper. And I can buy blocks of this printer paper, maybe 400 or 500 sheets of paper, for not much more than the price of a small cheap sketchbook. And the small cheap sketchbook might have only 30, 40, maybe 50 pages. So in terms of practicing or just creating art, just having fun, printer paper could be an affordable option. It depends. It is for me, but other countries, it might be different. But anyway, it's something it might be worth looking into. This type of art that I'm doing, you could buy enough materials to get you through a month or so for probably less than $10, pounds or euros, whatever currency you work with. So it is much cheaper than the more expensive art materials. And as I say, it's lots of fun creating these little people sketches. The thing where art tends to start to become a bit more expensive is when you start adding in color. So if you're using toned paper, colored paper, that's going to be more expensive. And any sort of color materials that you're using, and in this one I'm using soft pastels and the compressed charcoal, and then things do start to get more expensive. So then you have a choice, sort of 2 roads you can go down. The first one is to find cheaper color media. You can buy cheaper watercolor paints that are probably marketed at children rather than artists or adults. You can buy, instead of getting expensive oil pastels, you can buy cheaper waxy pastels like the Crayola type pastel. Soft pastels, you can also get cheaper versions of those. Now in all these cases, why are they cheaper? They're cheaper because they're not as good quality. Let's be honest, that's the reason. And the thing that makes the color materials expensive is the pigment. the cheaper versions, the Crayola crayons, the cheaper soft pastels and so on, the kids watercolor, they're cheaper because they're using cheaper pigments, and they're using less pigment and a lot more fillers and binders and things. So that means you're not going to get the same beautiful saturated colors with the cheaper materials. And in that sense, creating amazing art is going to be trickier. I know people will say it's the people, it's the artists, it's you, it's me. We're the ones who create the art, not the materials. So really you can use any material, and there's a degree of truth in that, and I agree with that. But it is easier to use more expensive materials than cheaper ones in general, because you get the better coverage, you get the more saturated colors, and the final result often looks better. That's just reality. So a second way of doing things, rather than buying the cheap materials, a second approach might be using limited color palettes. And that's what I did with this little painting here. I had 2 of the Derwent XL blocks, a white one and a black one, and then 5 soft pastels. So just 5 different colors. The final result, you're always going to be limited, but you can create art. You can have fun. You can create nice looking paintings, amazing looking paintings with a very limited color palette. And you're still using high quality, expensive artist materials. You're just not using as many of them. With a lot of these things like pastels and tubes of paint and things, you can buy sets, or you can buy just individual tubes or individual pastels. So you can, keep the cost down a little bit by just using a more limited palette. So I think that was the sort of 2 things I wanted to say. Maybe using limited palettes, keeping the cost down that way, and also using more, not color materials, more modest materials, maybe graphite and charcoal, because they are more affordable. And paper is also using the printer paper rather than artist quality paper. As I say, the printer paper is not acid free, so therefore it will deteriorate over time. But if you're using it just for having fun, just for practice, things like that, why not? If you're saving money, if it's not as expensive, it means you can do more art, and that's the main thing, maybe. Okay, well, I can say this topic, it's an important topic, an interesting one, maybe not for everybody, but I think for a lot of us, it is something that we need to think about, how to make art on a budget, kind of thing. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. There is an associated blog article, which I will try to remember to link in the description box below, along with a few other links if people are interested. But yeah, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for making it this far in the video, and hopefully see you in next week's video.